Okay, I am installing a gas water heater, and it has a recirculating loop for hot water so that you have hot water at any sink location instantly. So let's explain how this works. Over here on the left bottom is the main water line coming in. This line going straight up, that just is the cold water to all the sink locations in the house. This here, okay, it starts with the valve here, that's the shutoff to the water heater, goes into a flex line that comes up to a set of pipe here. There's a 3/4 inch T here, and there is a flex line that comes down and back up to the expansion tank. And this flex line drops down about 8 inches and is kind of a heat trap so that it prevents heat from the water heater in the pipe here from working its way back up to the expansion tank. This here is a shutoff valve for servicing in case you need to shut it off and do something with the tank or something else in the line. So it's just kind of a redundant thing, not necessary, but it's there. Here's a 90-degree T, and in this area here, all right, this is where the recirculating loop comes back to the water heater. So you have your cold water coming into the water heater and your recirculating hot loop coming back into the water heater also. Here is a check valve, and what that does is it only allows water to flow this direction back into the water heater. And the reason you need that valve is so that when you open up one of the valves at one of the sink locations anywhere in the house, you don't want cold water back feeding up to that fixture. So this check valve prevents any cold water from coming up and back into the hot water loop. So what does happen is when you turn on the water, the hot water, you have cold water rushing in. That wasn't supposed to happen, darn it. You have cold water rushing in, and you have the continuous loop here too, so they mix at this point, and it just goes into the water heater and turns into hot water and goes its way back out. So here is the hot water out from the water heater, which goes to a circulating pump, and that pump sends the water up through the line, and the line is a continuous line with a branch at each location. So there's a laundry washing machine, there's a laundry sink, master bath sink, master bath shower, guest bath sink, there's a garage work sink, and then outside is a hose bib that has a hot and a cold on it. And at that point it becomes the return loop working its way back to the water heater. Here's a shutoff valve here, just in case you need to service anything in this area. And so all of these pipes have foam tube insulation over them. You need the insulation to keep the efficiency up. You don't want to be losing all your heat in the water as it goes through the loop, because the loop can be 100 and some feet long. Okay, and so that's how that works. The water comes in, goes through here into the water heater, gets sent back out through the line, past all the fixtures, then the loop begins back through the check valve, down the T and in. And the cold water comes in and down into the water heater and out. So that is how the system works. When you operate this system, all the air must be removed from the loop. for the pump to circulate properly. If the air is not out, you will have an air gap in there, and the pump won't be able to pump water up and through the area where the air gap is. All the pipe needs to be insulated to make it efficient, and this is where, over here, this is where the recirculating loop ends and enters back into the water heater, continually repeating the cycle, so there is always hot water at any location. The check valve prevents incoming cold water from backflowing into the recirculating hot line. So this is just a simple diagram, and now I am going to show you the video of the actual installation. I'm going to show you how we are installing a Rheem gas water heater, and this one is about a 68 E68, I think the rating is. So we have the water heater is on a pedestal, and the reason you put it on a pedestal is that if there is a gas leak, gas tends to hang at the bottom. It's heavier than air. So if you have the water heater down on the floor and there is a significant amount of gas leak, when the water heater ignites, or if you've got a pilot light, it can all of a sudden explode or cause the gas in the room to explode. And so that's one way that they can try to make the water heater safer, is by elevating it. And that's about 12 inches. So the next thing we have here are the earthquake straps. And those go into studs. You want to make sure you get them in the stud. And here's how these work. You have these two U brackets, and one of them goes in the strap. You see how it sticks through these rectangular holes, and the strap continues across the water heater. And then you have the other strap that comes across. You put the U in that, spacing it about 2 inches apart. You have one slot between these two brackets. So then you put this bracket in the proper location, and then you fold this over or under, and that holds this bracket in place. And then the strap that is on the water heater behind it allows it to slide across without scraping into the water heater. Okay, we have two straps connected on this side, and we have the strap connected over on this side, but down here we haven't connected this one yet because it's a concrete wall. So we need to drill that out with a 3/8 hole, and we will be putting one of these expansion bolts in there. So you drill a 3/8 hole and slide this into the hole, and then when you go to tighten it, there is a cone at this end that's in the deep end, and there are little teeth on the collar that grab into the concrete as you pull back out. So as you tighten your nut holding the strap, this cone pulls back out and spreads the collar apart, which makes the teeth dig in even harder. And so the more you tighten it, the harder it grips. So it's a pretty good system for attaching stuff into concrete. Okay. And this here is just kind of a diagram of the installation for the water heater. And so that just kind of gives a layout of the pipes and where to install things, expansion tank, shut-off valves, heat traps. Okay, so let's go back over to the water heater. Okay, so back to it. This here is our gas line. This is a stainless steel jacket braided protective cover over a stainless steel corrugated flex tube pipe. So anyway, let's get up here and kind of explain what's going on here. We have, this is our water coming into the house, and we have our cold water here, which goes up to the house. That is all the house, the new addition. And this one here is to the water heater. And I like to install the water heater as the first thing off the main line, and that's because it helps to reduce the amount of temperature drop. For instance, you're taking a shower and someone kicks on the cold water somewhere else, it reduces the amount of cold or cooling in your shower, because the first thing being fed off the line is your hot water heater. So that just kind of makes it a little bit nicer. Okay, what we have going here is, that is the recirculating pump. It's made by Watts. It's a Grundfos pump, so it's good quality. And we have it standing up off the water heater so that we have clearance from the blower motor. And we will have it positioned like this so that you can reach the timer. You can have this on, timer, or off. And the way this one is set up is it pumps water. This is the hot water output, and it continually pumps water out from the water heater and recirculates it all through the house hot water line, which is a continuous line that goes from location to location to location. And at the last faucet in the house, which happens to be the shower in the master bathroom, it converts from 3/4 inch down to a 1/2 inch pipe, and that travels all the way back directly to the water heater, and that is going to connect into this here, which is a check valve. It only allows water to flow inward towards the water heater. Then we have our hot water line that's going to feed the water heater. So we're going to have a flex hose that comes from here up to the top of the, I'm sorry, not there. It's going to go over to, oh, come on, see the camera, over to here. And what that's going to do is, it is a cold water input, which is going to pass over through this T, and off the bottom of the T is a pipe going to this flex hose, and that flex hose goes up to the pressure expansion tank. And so the hose and position of it help to keep the temperature on it down, because the cold water, it's the first thing coming in from the cold water input. It's kind of hard to see everything in here, isn't it? Okay, so that is the cold water's input, and it is cold water coming in to this point here. So everything above that is cold, and we want to try and keep the pipes cool. that are feeding into the expansion tank. You don't want to have hot water in there. So the pump, the way this is going to work is it pumps out to the house, goes through the house, comes back through that pipe there, which is going to hook into this check valve, and it's going to come in and down, and then the cold water is above that and will go down. So the hot loop is before the cold water comes into the water heater. So that helps to isolate the expansion tank from the hot water out of the hot water tank. And also the hot water heater, see the nipples on top, those are directional. They have little balls inside of them that prevent or reduce the amount of water going backward. It lets cold water into the tank, and it lets hot water out, but it doesn't let hot water come backward or cold water come backward. It's one direction. Okay, so that is what we have going for plumbing here. I'm hoping this camera is getting it. We're in a tight location, so it's hard to get the camera positioned where you can see what's going on. Okay, so from this side here you can see a bit of it. Okay, so once again, cold water comes in here over to that T. That T has a flex pipe that goes down and back up over to the expansion tank, and that helps to reduce any heat going into the tank. And then the cold water continues through the pipe and down, where the check valve here allows water to go in from the recirculating line and back down into the hot water tank, recirculating out the hot and back in through the cold. And let's see, what else do we got here? So we have a shut-off valve here, which is just kind of a precautionary thing in case something happens with the tank. But we also have a shut-off here, and then we also have a shut-off on that recirculating line, which still needs to be positioned. Okay. And you can see we have the tank is strapped to the ceiling. And then we have the 3/4 inch plywood, which is screwed into the joists above and the wall studs on the side, because the straps don't line up with where the studs are, and we need something to fasten to. So voila, we get 3/4 inch plywood and screw into that. And then this is the vent. It is a high efficiency water heater, and so it exhausts with 2-inch PVC, and this one here will have a 1/8 inch downward slope going out through the side wall. So let me show you what has to happen on the outside with that, because there are very specific requirements for where you can and cannot position the outside vent. The vent has to be 4 feet from a operating window, and the ruling in this case is we have a gas water heater, or I'm sorry, a gas main here, the gas meter. So this mark here is where the pipe is going to come out through the wall, and that mark is about 2 feet from the gas regulator here. So we need to be 3 feet away from that regulator, so we cannot go to the sidewall. Incidentally, you can't vent closer than 24 inches to a corner either. So that means we have to go this direction. So we can go as close as 18 inches on an inside corner, as long as there's no restricting factor on it, and here there is not. So what we're going to do is come across to here, and then it will just take a 90-degree turn and then a 45-degree angle downward, and that is how we will position our exhaust. So it comes out here, we go across here so that we have 36 inches between the gas regulator and the exhaust of the pipe, and there's no restriction on the electrical meter here, no restriction on the gas line or the gas meter. So 3 feet from the regulator, and then a 1/8 inch downward slope, and that's our position for venting the water heater. Okay. Okay, we also have this temperature pressure relief valve on the water heater. So what we're probably going to do is just let this come down to the floor, and the floor is sloped outward, so we can just let it dump onto the floor and it'll just drain right outside. If we have to, we can come down and across out the sidewall, and there's already one drain here for the fire control system, and that just dumps right out the side of the house too. Okay, so let me get back on this here. We've got this is the nipple that comes out of the water heater. This is a 3/4 inch coupler. I've got a short 3-inch nipple here, a 3/4 inch T. Then I've got a 2-inch nipple and a 2-inch nipple. That is the check valve. Watch for the arrow. Make sure you have the arrow pointing the direction that you want the flow. And the arrow is right here, and the flow comes in and down. Then we have another 90-degree elbow here. This here is a 3/4 inch valve. And then we've got the next T back there. I don't know if you can see it very well. Okay, so we have the next T here, and the input nipple on the other side of the T, and the nipple here goes to the flex hose for the expansion tank. Okay, so that should be a pretty thorough explanation of installing a gas water heater. Okay, so I will show you the completed installation. You don't really need to sit here and watch me put things together. We're going to put this here pipe dope a little bit on the threads, and then we go over it with this high PTFE Teflon sealing tape, plumber's tape from OT. So we pipe dope a little bit, and then we wrap the part and then assemble it. And then you don't need to go extremely tight. You just tighten things down and then tighten them in the position that you want them. And then when you do tighten them, don't back off on tightening. If you go beyond, you can come back a little bit, but chances are you're probably going to need to go all the way around to the next turn. Otherwise you might get a leak. Okay, I'm going to get this thing done, and I'll show you when I'm finished. All right, there is the water heater. Finished the installation as far as the water, hot and cold, the circulating pump, and the pressure tank, expansion tank are concerned. So you can see everything's all nice and dry, no leakage. Here is the check valve. You see the arrow here, so that water can only flow this way back into the water heater. There is the return line, and we have a valve on that. There you can see the valve on it. Here's the recirculating pump, and if you listen, you can hear the motor run. There is the timer for it. You can turn it on full all the time, or you can set it to timer and have it come on at various times of the day. It's kind of an energy saver. And then, haven't started on the vent for the water heater yet. I've got my blue tape covering the hole here just so nothing falls down into it. But yeah, so the expansion tank, it's all strapped up, nice and solid. Grab my ladder. Okay, we've got our valve here to shut off, and we have another valve over here to shut it off. And so that is the valve that's feeding into the water heater, and it comes over here and hooks into this T back here. It's kind of a tight location, everything's hard to see, hard to get a camera in there. So the water is coming in back here to this T. This hose goes down and into the expansion tank. So this works out well because we have the recirculating valve is, or the recirculating line is here, and the check valve to keep, if you turn on a faucet, you don't want water flowing back through this line, you only want it going through this line, and the check valve prevents backflow through the system. And then, so we have this valve here so that if something happens, you can shut the water off at the tank. So the tank is in between this valve and the water heater main valve over there. And so your cold is coming in up here and down to this T. This is where the hot water is recirculating, so the water should be coming in through this pipe and going down into the water heater and then back out through this pump and continuing the loop. Hence the name continuous loop or recirculating loop. So there we go. Now I need to get the vent hooked up. And once I get the vent hooked up, then I can do the gas line, and then we will have water heater. So it's kind of exciting. The folks are excited because they've not had hot water in the new part of the house, only in the old part of the house. So, all right. And I still have to drill into the concrete for this other earthquake strap. Okay, let me get going on that. So basically what we're going to do is we have the pipe comes up, and we're going to drill straight out between the two pipes there, so it's lining up. Couldn't be a better lineup. Okay, let me get it going on it. Okay, and we are done. Water heater is working. So we just have things hooked up temporarily for now so that they have hot water tonight. But we have a ground faulted outlet here that's powering the water heater and the recirculating pump. I got the bolt in here. It's a 3" by 3/8 inch concrete anchor. I showed you the anchor earlier. So that's holding very nicely. We've got the strap is all connected. So here we have the gas connection. It's a 1/2 inch flare fitting. And then we have one of these safety valves here that will automatically stop the flow of gas if it senses a break in the line. So there is the 2" PVC vent going out the side of the house, and it puts out a little more noise than I thought it would. Let's walk over there and take a look at the pipes that I have. So right now the pipes are kind of temporary in place. It's glued, but it's not, I have to get a proper mount for it. Right now I'm just using a 6" timber lock bolt to hold this end up. But otherwise you can hear the wind blowing out from that, and it's warm. I mean, it's like 100 degrees. Not hot. Probably a little more noise than what I would expect, but so then we have our pipe coming out the wall here, keeping it a nice tight fit. And as you can see, we have our 3 feet of separation from the gas meter regulator, and then you can see the slope in the pipe, 1/8 inch per foot. I think we went just a little bit more than an 1/8 inch per foot. So that looks good right there. I'm happy with that. The whole installation took about 8 hours to do. And there you can see from the side. Okay. So we should be getting some warm in the pipes here by now. No, not yet. But it is, what is it, 65 gallons? So it's going to take a while to... No, it's 50 gallons. But it's still going to take a little while to warm up. So yeah, worked out very nicely. I'm happy with it. So once again, the way this system works is we have an 1¼ inch pipe comes in from the street. There is the main shutoff there. There is the low point drain. Here is the fire suppression system, and that has its own management system. And then this is the shutoff for the house, so that you can service the house without having to shut off the fire. That's a requirement. Then there is the valve for the hot water tank, and that goes up to that T there. Comes over here, and you can see that we have a 3/4 inch gate valve. I'm sorry, ball valve. It's kind of hard to get things in here because the positioning is tight. And then here is the check valve, the one-way valve coming this way, and that is the recirculating hot loop. So it comes through here and down and recirculates back over to the pump and out through the system again. then the expansion tank, remember, is up here close to the cold inlet away from the hot, and then it has a dip of about 8 inches separate, so the heat rises. It'll kind of be a heat trap is what that is. And then over on this side here, that's the recirculating pump. Grundfos, Watts rebrands it, and it goes over here, a loop in the pipe, which is good because the pump has vibration, and the loop is a good thing to have in your pipe. And then it goes up into the ceiling, into the blue PEX. Sorry, the red PEX. Keep getting a little confused about this. So there you go. That is the way that you hook up a gas water heater with a recirculating hot water pump. And the earthquake straps, 1/3, 1/3, and that's the whole unit. So at every 1/3 you put a strap. Okay, so that is it for today. It took about 7 hours to get the whole thing in, set it in place, do the gas, make all the connections. Let's see if we're getting some warm water here yet. It's still not feeling warm, but it's 50 gallons, so it's going to take a little while. Okay, I am going to finish cleaning up, put all my tools away. And to put that concrete anchor in, we used our roto hammer, good old Bosch SDS. Actually, it's not an SDS, or is it? I don't remember. Too many different acronyms. But we have a 3/8 inch bit on that. Then we just hammered that anchor in, and then when you tighten it, it sucks the collar into the cone and clamps itself in real good. Okay, that's all, folks.